Welcome back to the latest installment of our series on insect prey-predator interactions. As we delve into the dynamics between predators and prey, it's important to remember that predation exerts natural pressures on prey species. This selects for traits in prey like faster feeding on plants, unpalatability, or better camouflage. In turn, these prey adaptations put selective pressure back on predator species to become more efficient hunters, to counteract prey defenses, or to evolve resistance to the toxins that prey species may harbor. This ongoing evolutionary back and forth, or coevolution, shapes species over thousands and tens of thousands of years. Sometimes these interactions become so specialized that a prey species may only be controlled by one or a few predator species. In today's video, we'll explore two remarkable examples of coevolution, where predator-prey relationships not only influenced individual species, but also had dramatic impacts on everything from ecosystems to human economies. Our first story begins in the forests of Australia with a tiny insect called the cottony cushion scale, Icerya purchasi. This sap-sucking pest uses specialized feeding organs, called stylets, to pierce plant tissues, extracting nutrient-rich phloem from deep within the plant's vascular system. Icerya purchasi is highly efficient, able to feed quickly and in large volumes. It also has a waxy, cotton-like coating that acts as a physical barrier, deterring many predators, making it difficult for insects to pierce its body. And it reproduces in astonishing numbers, up to 1,000 eggs per female, ensuring rapid recovery even after significant predation. Its primary predator in its native range is the Vedalia beetle, Rodolia cardinalis, also known as the cardinal ladybird. This beetle has evolved to specialize in preying on Icerya purchasi. How? Well, it uses specialized chemoreceptors to detect the scales at a distance. And its larvae and adults are equipped with powerful mandibles, capable of cutting through the cottony coating and piercing the scale's defenses. For centuries, these two species, predator and prey, maintained a delicate balance with one another in Australian ecosystems. But in the 1870s, something unexpected happened. Icerya purchasi was inadvertently introduced into the United States, possibly overlooked on an imported tree. Maybe on a shrub, maybe on someone's hat. It doesn't really matter. Once it arrived, the scale soon found itself in the citrus groves of California, a perfect environment for rapid reproduction. And lo, so it was. As the cottony cushy scale cast its gaze upon the unfamiliar land, it marveled at the bounty before it. American orchards ripe with sap-laden trees, untouched and unguarded. And to its great astonishment, there was no sight, no scent, no shadow of its ancient nemesis, the Vedalia beetle. For you see, that cunning old relentless warrior, the cardinal ladybird beetle, had not embarked upon the perilous voyage across the seas. It was as though the balance of fate had tipped, granting the scaly pest a land unchallenged, a feast unguarded, and a season of dominance unbroken by the fangs of its ancestral foe. The result was devastating. Well, for everyone except for Icerya purchasi. The scale quickly infested citrus orchards, feeding on sap, defoliating trees, causing branch dieback. Within a decade, the pest had spread to tens of thousands of acres, and citrus yields plummeted by about 80% in some areas. Farmers resorted to sometimes desperate measures like uprooting and burning trees, but these efforts barely slowed the scale's spread. The situation threatened to collapse California's burgeoning citrus industry, which was a cornerstone of the state's economy. Enter Charles Valentine Riley, the head of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Division of Entomology. Riley believed in the emerging concept of biological control, using natural predators to manage invasive species. In 1888, Riley sent entomologist Albert Koebele to Australia to search for Icerya purchasi's natural enemies. And so it was that Albert Koebele, the intrepid seeker of balance, journeyed to the distant shores of Australia, a land of strange wonders and fierce inhabitants. As his ship approached the coastline, the sun dipped low, casting golden light upon the rugged landscape. There, amongst the windswept foliage and the whispering gum trees, the Vedalia beetle awaited. A vigilant sentinel of its homeland, unyielding in its eternal dance with the cottony cushion scale. Unseen, yet ever present, the tiny predator lay poised, its crimson armor gleaming like drops of fire against the verdant green. It had no knowledge of the stranger's arrival, no inkling of the fate that cast it in a new role, one that would carry it across the ocean to battle its old adversary in a foreign land. Yet, there it was, a guardian of balance, waiting as if destiny had placed it upon the shores at that very moment, ready to be called forth to wage its silent war in distant orchards. Ultimately, Koebele identified the Vedalia beetle as a promising candidate for biological control. After testing its effectiveness and assuring it wouldn't harm non-target species, he shipped hundreds of the beetles back to California. There, the beetles were mass-reared and strategically released in infested orchards. The results were extraordinary. Within 18 months, the Vedalia beetle had dramatically reduced Icerya purchasi populations, restoring balance to the citrus groves. By the early 1890s, California's citrus industry was thriving again. This was a landmark success in biological control, demonstrating how understanding coevolutionary relationships can provide sustainable solutions to ecological crises. Our second story today takes us to the tropical forests of South America and to the native range of the red imported fire ant, Solenopsis invicta. Known for its aggressive behavior and painful stings, the fire ant dominates its environment. However, in their natural range, their populations are kept in check by natural enemies, including parasitoid flies of the genus Pseudoactyon. Pseudoactyon flies lay their eggs inside fire ants. Once hatched, the larvae migrate to the ants' heads, consuming them from the inside out before decapitating their host. A process as gruesome as it is effective. In response, fire ants have evolved behaviors to minimize their exposure to the flies, such as retreating to their nests when the flies are present. This maintained the ecological balance for the red imported fire ants in the forests of South America. In the 1930s, these fire ants were accidentally introduced into the southern United States via soil used as ship ballast. Ship ballast refers to weight carried in a ship's hold to ensure stability during a voyage, often when the ship is traveling light on cargo. In the 19th and early 20th century, soil, sand, or rocks were often used for ballast. This ballast is then offloaded at ports, unintentionally bringing in with it foreign species, like the red imported fire ant. And lo, as the red imported fire ant surveyed their new environment, just kidding. I'll stop that. In the southern United States, these fire ants found few competitors and no natural predators. So they spread rapidly, overtaking native ant species, devastating wildlife and impacting agriculture. The sting of these ants can actually cause injury to humans, often being compared to the pain of a yellow jacket sting. The ants can also cause livestock death, with newborn animals like calves and piglets being particularly vulnerable. Ultimately, by the mid-20th century, these fire ants were causing tens of millions of dollars of damage annually. Early control efforts relied on chemical pesticides, which were expensive, environmentally damaging, and ultimately not super effective for long-term suppression. In the 1990s, entomologists turned to South America's natural ecosystems for a solution. After rigorous testing to ensure that they wouldn't harm native species, the Pseudoactyon parasitoid flies were introduced to the southern United States. The results were promising. Fire ants altered their behavior, reducing foraging activity and ultimately weakening their colonies. Over time, native ants began reclaiming their habitats, contributing to ecosystem recovery. While these flies have not eradicated the ants, they've become an important tool in the managing of their populations as part of an integrated pest management strategy. Both of these stories, the Vedalia beetle and the cottony cushion scale, and the fire ant and the pseudoactian flies, highlight the power of coevolutionary relationships in predator-prey dynamics. They show how leveraging these relationships through biological control can sometimes mitigate the damage caused by invasive species. However, these successes can also come with a warning. Disrupting ecological balances can have profound and far-reaching consequences, both for natural ecosystems and even for human livelihoods. Understanding and respecting the intricate dance between predators and prey is essential for maintaining biodiversity and sustainability. Well, that's enough for one day. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.